Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, engineers. This is your instructor, Dr. Amir Shaheen, and our today's topic is barriers to effective communication and their management. So today we will be talking about various things as to how many things there are around us that affect our communication, and they prove to be barriers and hence create problems for communication. Uh, so, points of discussion: communication, what it is, significance of communication, process of communication, barriers to communication. So, you see that we have been talking about communication at large, and then we have talked about the significance of communication, that how it is important for us, and what is the process of communication, that how sender, encoder, and the medium are involved in communication cycle. And today we move onwards with the word barrier and barriers to communication, to understand that what are the difficulties or the impediments that hinder our communication. And it is important for us to know these things in advance so that we may be able to tackle with them when necessary. As I have been telling you in my previous lectures, that whenever we are mindful about the prospective mistakes or blunders in our communication, or the barriers in this case in our communication, then we are very much able to overwhelm, or to, you say, to deal with the situation of that a special situation when we are unable to communicate. So, knowing about various kinds of barriers that may occur in our communication process is equally important for us, because it is going to prepare us for dealing with them or tackling them in a successful manner. Uh, as you see in this slide, that there are various pictures that you can see uh, with vis-a-vis communication. You can see that on the top of this slide we can see that there's a pigeon who is carrying a message, right? And actually this picture refers to the oldest way of communication, uh, that how in the past communication was very hazardous as it depended upon animals. So you see, uh, depending on somebody else to communicate for you is the one of the most important barriers itself, if we just look at it from this point of view. Making um, making an animal carry your message is already a barrier, because that animal may not reach, due to some reason, the destination where the message has to reach itself. So, and the other is that how through smoke signals, as we can see that two people are trying to lit a fire, and then this the smoke is rising, and how that signal is going to be conveyed to some party placed at some other place, and they are going to look at the smoke, and they are going to take that signal, the meaning of that signal. So another way of communicating was through signals. And here now in the third picture you can see that there are two laptops sitting in two laptops placed there, and the communication is now through these digital means, and this medium of communication has thrived in the present world. So you see that previously there has been there have been various modes of communicating, and now in our present time, contemporary times, we are with the help of the best medium to convey our messages, and it has become easy for us now to communicate. So, what is communication? Communication is a process through which two or more people exchange information, ideas, thoughts, emotions in such a way that each gain a common understanding of the intended message. Now, by now, you have completely understood that what is the process of communication, that it is between two or more people, actually an exchange of information, ideas, thoughts, and emotions, right, to bring out a common understanding for the intended message. So communication is a dyadic concept. In communication system, 35% messages are carried verbally, and rest of the 65% are conveyed non-verbally. We'll be talking about verbal and non-verbal communication also later on. Uh, Communication. Communication is the process of sending and receiving messages between parties. That is the fact that we have understood by now, as we are talking about communication for the last 3 weeks by now, and we are very much aware of the word communication and the meanings entailing it. Next slide. Basic model of communication, as you already know, and we have already talked about this as well in our lecture on process of communication, that essentially there are two parties or more than two parties involved in communication. The first is the sender, who encodes and then sends the message, right, through communication channel through various medium. What are those mediums? Those mediums are face to face, those mediums are videos, telephone, speech, voicemail, online messages, email, letters, you know, and various other media. So message is conveyed by a sender who encodes his message, right, and he sends this message to the other person or the other group, which receives the message and decodes it, right. And in between you can see that there is a word written here, noise, and this noise is actually referring to the in-between situation of barriers, that what kind of barriers may occur many of the times. Like, I can give you an example for this as well from our own communication system that we have evolved these days, um, for our classes. Since I have a Google Meet class with you, and in that class you see that there are distortions, there are disturbances. You Most of the times students say that, sir, we are unable to hear your voice. Why it is so? Because that voice is coming through a medium, that is the internet, and internet is sometimes there is no connection, sometimes there is poor connection, and due to which the sound quality or the video quality, if it is the case of video, sending video messages, is very poor. So you see that there are, apart from these two parties, sender and receiver, who are actually meant to encode and decode, and then complete the cycle by the receiver himself or herself, again encodes and then sends the message, which is received by the first sender, and then it is decoded by him, and then he understands that message, and then he gives the feedback. The feedback is the response of any communication, or any sentence, that or any uh, you know any message that is sent, whether it's visual, whether it is written, or verbal or non-verbal. So this is the communication cycle that we have talked about already in our previous classes as well, and this communication cycle is always having problems in the shape of noise, in the shape of weak connection, and various other reasons that may serve as barriers to communication. So once again, to look at the previous slide from a different point of view, with the help of a different slide, you see that the source, encoded, channel, decoded, receiver, right, and then the feedback. So this is the process of communication that takes place between one person to other person, or one group to another group. Significance of communication. Lifeblood of an individual, organization, society. As you grow, you communicate more and more in all domains of life and in all directions, downwards, sideways, upwards. These are the different dimensions of communication. So when we use the word lifeblood of an individual or organization or society, it means that, what is lifeblood? Lifeblood is, we human beings, or any living thing, even if it is plants, they have their own lifeblood. Like, with plants it might be different, but with us animals, we have blood running in our veins. That is actually the surety of our life, and if that love if that blood is taken out of our life, then definitely we die. So communication is very important, equally like blood in our lives as well. So if human beings, if they remain silent, they may die. Okay, because human beings do want to express themselves, do want to share their views, do want to share their emotions with others. Therefore, communicating those emotions, those ideas is very important for all individuals, human beings. And when they make an organization, or when the individuals join to make a society, it becomes more important, because human beings are, as we know, that we are social animals, and social animals interact with one another. We human beings interact with one another, and that interaction is based on our communication system. uh, in our own lives even, uh, when we are struck by some idea, we do want to share it with someone close to us, so that we are able to digest that idea, we are able to think about it more, and then we are able to formulate a policy to execute that idea. So for individuals, for organizations, for societies, communication is the lifeblood. It is the most important thing. This is the only pillar of society on which the whole society is joined, because human beings interact through language, and language is actually the the communicating you know uh, communicating vessel through which we communicate. So as you grow, you communicate more and more, by with the help with the passage of time. We human beings are actually trying to establish ourselves as communicators, and in all domains of life and in all directions, we need to communicate with one another, so that life becomes easier. Now, once again, here we are referring to downwards, sideways, upwards. These three words actually talk about they signify the dimensions of communication. Downwards communication means that a communication that is sent from the boss to the subordinate, and the sideways communication is the horizontal communication that occurs between two equals, or more than two equals. And upwards communication is the communication that actually occurs between the subordinate and the higher, that is the officer. So these are the three dimensions. Downwards or upwards communication may be called as vertical communication, because it moves from upwards to downwards, or from downwards to upwards. In either way, this is a vertical kind of communication. And the sideways communication, we can use the word for sideways, horizontal communication, which occurs between the peers, right? So next slide. Now we come to the point: barriers for effective communication. What are the in this slide, you can see that there are two people sitting, and there is a wall of bricks in between them. Now this is a symbolic picture. It doesn't mean that we always have a physical wall between us. Usually that this wall actually represents to various factors that may occur between two people, and cause and become barriers, and cause the disruption of communication, or the poor quality of communication is caused by these walls. That maybe uh, these walls might be voluntary or involuntary. That is, sometimes our communication is faulty because of ourselves. So this is a voluntary kind of intervention on our own part, as to communicate in a poor manner. And sometimes the other person who is communicating to us, he is the real source of confusion, and the communication is confused as well. So therefore, the barriers to communication, for effective communication, may occur on both may come from both sides, and you will see that what are those. Next slide. Here in this slide, you can see once again, the this slide also refers to the process of communication. Ideas occur, messages coded, and then messages sent. This is the first thing in the process of communication. As we know that the sender happens to have an idea. Of course, every sentence coming out from our mouths is actually an idea converted into language, and that language through words spoken is or written is sent to the receiver, and then through the medium or the channel, that is, it might be the spoken word, it might be the video message, it might be the SMS, it various kinds of you know mediums are now there, right? The message for sending the message. So uh, then message is received and message is decoded and messages, that idea is understood, and then that idea is once again sent back to the sender, that carrying the response of the receiver. So this is how it works. But in between these two people, in between this message traveling, there is a point where the barriers occur. So uh, in conjunction with the previous slide, we saw that there was a wall between two persons, and now to have more, in the terms of communication process, we can see that very same representation of a situation in more technical manner here in this slide. So what we have to do to be effective in our communication, what we have to do is that we have to remove those barriers, or we have to try our utmost not to, commit those things which are meant to impede our communication, which stop our communication from being effective. And being the communicators, this is our basic task. Barrier. Lack of commonness is barrier. A barrier to interpersonal communications is anything that prevents, restricts, or impedes the conveyance of meaning by words or gestures between two or more persons in a social setting. The term barriers, obstacles, hindrances, and noise are all used to describe the distracting stimuli associated with the communication process. Absence of defined role of any component is equal to creates barriers. So lack of commonness is a barrier. Two people talking to each other, if they do not have common interest, then they may not be able to speak for much longer time. You see, small talk. How much one can have small talk? If two people meet and they will start about they will start their communication through small talk. Small talk is that how are you, how is it everything going, and then after the on from this personal note, the speakers are supposed to move to the business, to the idea, to the interaction that is actually lying at the base of that communication. So there is always there is always an interest that actually that so you see that commonness is one of the between two speakers is one of the element that actually makes the communication easier. But if this commonness is not present between the two persons, then the communication is not easier, it is impeded, it is hindered. So uh, the definition might be for a barrier to be to interpersonal communication, that one thing that is anything that prevents, restricts, or impedes the conveyance of meaning by words or gestures between two or more persons in a social setting. And the words like barriers, obstacles, hindrances, and noise are all used to describe the distracting stimuli associated with the communication process. These are known as these are the words that represent the distracting stimuli. Those stimuli can be in various forms. That one of the distracting stimuli may be the a lack of commonness between two parties, two people, while communicating. We this stimuli word comes from psychology. Uh, there is this understanding in psychology regarding the concepts of stimulus and response. We know that every response is caused by a stimulus, right? So here, the stimuli is the plural of stimulus. Many distractions serve as the stimulus for uh, you know a stimulus for faulty communications process. The, therefore, various stimuli occur as barriers to our communication. Next slide. Barriers to effective communication may occur in various dimensions, in various directions, like social, psychological, cultural, physiological, system design, physical, receivers, right? So, through these words in this slide, you can understand that there are various dimensions of barriers that may occur in our communication system, and we need to know them in advance as to avoid them coming in our uh, communication. Social barriers: gender, age, race, national or cultural origin, socioeconomic class, education level, urban or rural residence. All these elements play a very important role in communication. You see, two women talking to one another might be easier in their communication, whereas there might be some certain difficulty between the different persons speaking. That if you Well, this is how it actually works. If you go to some place and you being a woman come across a man with whom you are to speak about some business or some official work, then naturally there are some you know there are some hindrances based on gender that most oftenly well, it is in our culture as well that we do not have interactions between the genders, different sexes, so it becomes difficult, or it is uncomfortable more oftenly for the person belonging to different sex to uh, to talk to one another in a comfortable manner. And so is the case with the age, that you know age gap. We most oftenly talk about the word age gap. What is this age gap? This age gap is also referent to the difficulty, the barrier level between two people in speaking or in communicating. Well, we know that it is difficult for young people to make understand the older peoples, and likewise it is difficult for older people to convey their message completely to the young people, because young people are living in another time frame. They are full of youth, and they believe that everything can be done within a blinking of an eye, whereas the old people, they have grown in experience and they know that things are how things turn up, how things are difficult, and what kind of perseverance, the level of perseverance is most oftenly required for translating any idea into action. Therefore, age also is one of the barrier among the social barriers. One is gender, and the other is age, and then race. Well, the problem of race does not occur in our society, so to find any examples coming from our society will be difficult for us. But in a multicultural society, or a multiracial society, like talking about Britain or talking about America, these cosmopolitan countries with cosmopolitan cities where many races live together, like in New York. If we take the example of New York, or we take the example of say London, then these two cities, these are the megalopolis, these are the biggest cities of the world. Or we talk about Paris. So here, in such places, the communication is very difficult. Communication is difficult on the basis of the presence of different people. Well, not to mention the gender and the age difference, but these people are racially different to one another, like black people, white people, Irish people blonde with blonde people with red hairs, red heads, or say the Chinese people, the brown people, say the Asians, brown people. Now these are different African people with their you know more thick hair. So all these people, if they are at one place and they have to talk to one another, that then the major barrier that they may have in between them is the racial barrier, right? Because they are not but in multicultural cosmopolitan cities there are so many people belonging to different races, and then they need to be race intelligent. They need to be intelligent about their racist background, their racial background, not racist. Racist is the word, negative word. Racist is a person who is you know who believes that he's superior and downgrades the other race. Likewise, the we can understand it on the basis of the interaction between white and black people, that white people believe that the white people are superior, whereas the black people are inferior. So this transaction, this racial transaction between different races always exists, and this may lead towards animosities or unfriendliness between the speakers, between the communicators, therefore causing a social barrier. Well, if two people belonging to two different races happen to be in a meeting, and in that meeting they are they, they, they they have to discuss some business deal, but knowing that they both belong to different race might be creating problems for them inwardly, and those problems will be translated into their communication, so causing the communication barrier. National or cultural origin, likewise, races, cultures are different. People belonging to different cultures have different norms, right? They have different words, their languages are different, so their customs are different, their traditions are different, being the different nations. Like, I give you the examples that, say, in a Dubai airport you happen to see an Indian, and you being Pakistani come in front of him or her, and you need to, you're standing in the same line for your flight that is on airport, for your flight that is booked for, say, Washington DC. You're going to America from Dubai. One is an Indian and the other is a Pakistani. So the national backgrounds and the although we may have some similarities in our cultures, but the national backgrounds might be at the back of our minds, and those will be stopping us. That, okay, Indians are not our friends, and he will be thinking that Pakistanis are not our friends. So this thing will be serving as a barrier. The national background of both the persons standing on an airport in Dubai, heading for Washington DC, where they are going to live for a longer period of time, until they are able to live together, and they understand that they are now living at a different place where their nationalities do not interfere with their social interactions. Till then they will be not on similar page, so you see a social barrier will be occurring between them based on their nationalities, like socio-economic class. uh, Likewise, money also has an impact. So people belonging to do different economic structures, that a person with a high salary and the person with a low salary, they are also different uh, in their earning levels, and society also gives them different places. Therefore, their interaction on a communication forum will also be strained, will also be restricted, and the reason behind will be the socio-economic differences between their classes that will be causing problems for them uh, in interacting with one another. And education level is another social barrier that occurs between speakers. Say that two people meet in a conference, and about some subject, or let's take some other example, that say that two managers belonging to two different organizations gather in a meeting, and one is from, say, Quaid Azam University, graduate of a Quaid Azam University, and the other is a graduate of, say, Government College University Faisalabad, like you. So the one belongs to the, the biggest city of Pakistan, that is Islamabad, which is also the capital, and the other belongs to Faisalabad, which is the third largest country of the city of the country. But once again, it is the third one, not the first one. So Islamabad being the capital. So these two people, these two managers, sitting in some meeting, representing their business organizations, uh, might not be at the same page. So there will be their level of education is different, their institutions are different, so their differences are there, and that they will be causing as a barrier for them to come closer and make the communication process easier. So education level serves as another social barrier in creating hindrances uh, for successful communication or effective communication. The communication is no longer effective within these between these two managers, as they are not belonging to the same education level or the same education system or the same educational premises, that is the university. So you see that if in that meeting the two managers were actually the passed out students from the same university, say Government College University Faisalabad, one was passed out in 2008 and the other passed out in 2013, they will be meeting and they will be already on a comradeship. They will be on the level of a comradeship between one another, because they both belong to the same educational institution, and their level of education is equally. They belong to the same departments, although the one uh, you know graduated in 2008 and the other after some years. So they are juniors and seniors, so their repo, their level of communicating with one another is already you know understood by both of them, and their confidence for speaking to each other is more you know uh, uh, is more helpful to them than the confidence level of those people who belong to different institutions. Urban or rural residences, people belonging to different areas of the same country, that is, people belonging to the cities and the people belonging to villages, they also have different ways of communicating, and their communication is already uh, is jeopardized because of their background, urban and rural background. Because rural people believe that they are more pure, they are more more akin to nature, whereas the urban people believe that they are more civilized, more educated, and the rural people do not have manners. So this background of their residences situated at different places in a same city is also that also might be influencing their communication. So here we have the further detail of gender in the social barriers that we talked about in the previous slide. Major influence on the way communicate with others. When men and women work together in a group, men tend to be more assertive and self-confident. And this self-confidence and assertiveness makes men believe that they are more stronger, and women are not stronger, and they cannot tackle the issues in any institution or in any organization or at a workplace, which causes the rift between both the sexes. And women are more likely than men to express their emotions, to reveal how they feel about a situation. And it is also believed, stereotypically, it is believed that women are emotional beings. So they respond to situations from the emotional side, whereas men are uh, more removed from the emotions, and they are more rational and they are more logical. Now, this might not be true, because it is a stereotype. Stereotypes are not helpful always, and if we are stereotypical, if we are into stereotyping about people, that if we before speaking to someone, we already have a stereotype that this person is a woman, so women are emotional, so that this lady might not be clear. And whereas a woman speaking to a male, thinking that they are they are more self-confident than they are, and they are more assertive than they should assert, and they are less emotional. So you see, both the sexes can talk about each other in a derogatory manner, in a negative manner, and this negativity of thought will lead towards a poor communication between both the sexes. It will lead towards ineffectiveness of communication between both the sexes. So gender plays a very vital role, in the quality of the communication. Age. We already talked about age, so we speak a little bit more about it. Young people and old people communicate in different ways. Of course, the language quality is different from one another because you see, after language is changing, language is a living organism and it keeps on changing. So, the old people who might have graduated say 20 years back and the young person who has graduated right now, their language is not of the same level. Their languages are different from each other. So one might be this cause. We do tend to judge a statement by different standards if we know the speaker's age. You know, this is a very common thing that whenever we come across a person, we try to ascertain certain factors about, you know, that about certain things about that person, that okay, this person is younger than me or older than me, okay, this person is a woman or a man, okay, this person belongs to what institution, what, as all those things which we mentioned in our the first slide about social barriers. That so we, at coming across any person for the first time, there is an analysis going on in the back of our mind that this person belongs to this age, this gender, this area, this country, this culture, this race. And after having a thorough, surveillance of that background of the other person, we fix our way of communicating with this person. We choose a special kind of language for that person, and this happens. And this selection, of language might result into ineffective communication or at times successful communication. A person's age or gender is not important in judging the truth or wisdom of what that person says, but we need to remember always is that it is not necessary that a young person is not going to talk sense, or it is necessary that an old person is going to be always truthful, always perfect, always right. So by unfixing these stereotypes, by removing these barriers, social barriers regarding age, race, place, country, institution, all that stuff, by removing them from our understanding, we actually give an equal space to the person we are to communicate with, and this gives us this brings a level of equality between both the communicators, and hence is helpful for the effective communication between both the parties. It's just the fashion, Dad. Relax. Do not be going all Taliban on me. Now you can see that there is this sentence talks about the young boy and his father, that there is a difference, age difference, and that age difference is resulting into different idiom, different language, different sentence structure. A child, coming to senses in the times of terrorism might be using these words very nonchalantly, very easily, very comfortably, wherever this word Taliban might be giving chills to the father because he has seen many things related to that terror or terrorism. So you see, their maturity, their educational backgrounds, and the different areas in which they grew up make a generation gap inevitable. It is very important for us to understand. Social values continued. Purpose of communication: informative, entertaining, and persuasive. Purpose not clear, missing, at odds. You know, if the purpose of communication is informative, entertaining, and persuasive, then the communication process will be complete, it will be successful. But if the purpose is not clear, it is missing, or it at odds with between the two people, then the communication is not going to be effective. Social noise, subjective factors, human relation, personal references overshadow the objectivity of the communication. Boys, girls, friends, enemies, nice people, these things you know, work in the background of any communication. So try to ensure the objectivity. Do not get dragged by subjective factors. All these are subjective factors. That I am highly educated, I belong to a good country, I belong to a big city, I belong to a good institution of education, I belong to city. So all these things are, if a person is thinking on these lines while communicating to others and is judging the people already on subjective levels, he's not objective. He is not thinking that the other person with whom I am here to talk to is actually a business deal, and we have to come to some point where we can have an understanding and we can have a successful deal, right? So uh, objectivity is the required thing in communication, and if it is based on subjectivity, then we are very much on our way towards finding difficulties in communicating effectively. Psychological barriers, attitude towards oneself, fear, attitude towards audience, attitude towards the message. You yourself is not convinced with the subject matter, knowledge of the subject matter is poor, personality status of the communicator. All these things add to the psychological barriers. You know, if I am already fearful about saying what I want to say, then that message will not be coming clearly from me. And if I'm afraid of the large number of audiences, then my confidence is shaky. And if that confidence is shaky, then message is going to be shaky as well. So and most oftenly, if you do not have a command on your subject, then your outcome cannot be good. You cannot speak about something clearly, about something convincingly, until unless you do not know about that thing in detail, right? So speaking about something on a surface level will lead towards shallow thinking, will lead towards shallow understanding, and hence uh, hence a communication barrier and causing failure of communication. So the knowledge of the subject is very important while talking about it, to convince others about that. So the next slide is about perception. Our perception is very important. Our physical limitations are a screen through which we perceive things that exist in our environment, right? It is through our own physical appearance that our own physical level, that we understand the environment around us. Our perception is also limited by psychological screens that we have developed, that we perceive things from the psychological factors that we have developed for ourselves. That is, that we have whatever psychology, state of psychology that we have developed till now will be effective on our communication as well. Choosing from among the many things within our range of perception those that we will notice and block out the rest is called selective perception. So when we are speaking, we are choosing. We choose about certain things to speak about, and we choose not to speak about a lot many things. So this process is called selective perception. We as speakers always know about our shortcomings. We as speakers always know about our strengths. So knowing your strengths and knowing your shortcomings is leading you towards selective perception about yourself. You will speak, of course, nobody likes to speak about the things that he's poor about. Everyone wants to speak about the things that he's good at, that he understands completely well. So being communicators, it is very much important for us to understand our strengths and remain within the domains of those strengths, and not to enter in those red zones where we might be at a difficulty because due to any poor level of understanding, we may not be able to communicate effectively. Now, it is about, the perspectives are very important between two people. Two people having different perspectives will never come on the same page, will never come to a level of communication which is successful. In this slide, you can see a picture that a mother has entered the room of her son, and she is asking him the regular question that most of our mothers ask us, that will you straighten up your room, or will you bring things to order in your room, or will you try to clean your room? But the teenager is answering in a question, why? What is messy? Because he doesn't think that that is messy. So you see, my perception of cleanliness might be different from the perception of cleanliness of my mother or the other people. At times, this also serves as a barrier of communication, that between two people the perception level is different, you know, and this perception level will cause further barriers of communication. Selective perception, some more stuff on that, allows us not only to block out things that are there but also to see more things that are there. Leads us to make our own reality, most clearly seen in the human tendency to stereotype others. So this is, I've already talked about this selective perception process, that we need to talk about only those things that we are confirmed about, that we are sure about, that we have a best knowledge about, and we should not base our perceptions on stereotypes, that okay, this person is an Indian, so he can I cannot speak to him, or this person is that, or this person belongs to a rural background, so he's not worthy of talking to me. You know, while speaking is a transaction, communication is a transaction, which is a responsibility on the part of both the parties, you know, engaged in communication. If it has to be successful, to make it successful, both the parties have to do their utmost to convey their message. Conveying the message is more important than to convey the message in a manner that is based in your own personal personal perceptions, selective perceptions, and stereotyping of the other person to whom you are sending the message. It is very important. Motivation. A motive is a reason for action. Of course, this is what we know, that every action is based in some motive. There is always a motivation behind some action to gain some result. The most strongest motivations are those that are most personal. Right now, we are talking about communication. We are talking about effective communication. We are talking about how to remove the barriers of barriers that impede or that hinder the effective communication. But all that is a motivation stuff. I'm giving you a lecture. This lecture is telling you about various aspects of barriers to communication, but at the same time, I'm motivating you for not committing some certain things. What is more important is that I cannot motivate you until unless you are personally motivated. So your personal motivation is the most important. If I am motivated with this idea that I have to be clear in my thought and I have to send my message accurately so that message goes clear and loud to the other person and there is no confusion, then there will be no confusion, right? So my talks, my communication shall be motivated by the clarity of the thought, not by any other thing, as we have been talking about them previously. So we are motivated by, and what are the things that motivate us most oftenly? Money, fame, power, love, status, security, skill, ambition, etc. And you can see that in the list of these motivational forces, there are many things which may be negative and there are many things which may be positive. Say money. If money is the only, you know, reason behind any action, that then of course this is not a good reason to have. Fame, okay, it is fine, but not, a fame at the cost of defaming others. So it is a neutral word. Power, power once again, immense power corrupts immensely. This is one of the sayings by one of the leading philosophers coming from England, that is George Orwell. So, once again, it is a very tricky word to use. Love, well, love is always good. So, if love is the is the base of, any motivation, love is the motivational force, then it is fine. Status, well, what is status? Status is relevant. A person who is a dervish is happy in his clothes, which are rags, whereas a king might be sleeping in the best, clothes. That not the king. These days we do not have kings. Say the prime minister of any country might be wearing the best clothes, might be having the best status, but he may not be happy. So, and security, skill is a good thing. Ambition, once again, leads to different results. So, you see, there are different motivations. We have to choose the positive motivations in our lives, right? And these motivations will help us move forward. Tunnel vision. One should not have a closed way of thinking, especially about abstract topics such as religion and politics. The person with tunnel vision is one who has firmly fixed ideas. One should be open-minded, right? And if you are open-minded, then you will be able to accept the other person to whom you are talking. And when you are able to accept the other person, then comes the level of ease and comfort for talking to each other, and the message is loud and clear. Person with tunnel vision has attitude seems to say, I have already made up my mind, do not confuse me with the facts. So a person who is not open-minded, a person who does not have a clear vision, rather has a restricted tunnel vision, will not be welcoming the other person's talk or other person's idea, and hence the communication will be already fruitless there. Ego defensiveness. A response pattern in which a person who follows this pattern sees a disagreement as a personal attack. A self-centered communication will occur more than just being selfish, because talking two people talking to each other are talking for a certain goal. They want to reach an understanding between each other, right? And this understanding can only be achieved through through being open-minded, through being not having any stereotypes in the mind already, have an equal level. Otherwise, if you are always guided by your ego and you think that whatsoever sentence is coming from the other person, it is an attack, personal attack on you, so you are not going to agree. You are not going to reach an agreement. You are always looking for a disagreement, and hence the communication is faulty, and it will be a failure. Negative emotions, we should avoid negative emotions when speaking. Almost always obstacles to good communication. Negative emotions are always almost obstacles to good communication, especially true barrier if the emotion is uncontrolled, unfocused, and misdirected. Human beings are emotional beings, but these emotions, if not controlled, will lead us towards suffering, towards confusion, towards misdirection. So, what we need to do is that we need to have positive emotions, and we need to think positively while meeting some other person about some important deal, business deal. We must have good hopes. We must have positive hopes regarding that person, and we should not let any other factor become a barrier for communication. Other psychological barriers, uh, people's state of mind, if it is happy or it is sad, personal problems or worries, preconceived notions of communicator or receiver, mental limitations of human beings, failure to refer language to experience, the confusion of concept. These are the things psychologically there, and they may also cause to become the barriers for effective communication. So, if you meet some person and he's not happy, already he's sad, so the communication level will be not on the equal scale. A person speaking with some sorrow in his mind or her mind will not be ready to accept the listener or the other person with whom he is speaking. And personal problems, if we are always worried about our personal problems, then we are not going to think about the other person that we are going to talk to. And preconceived notions about the communicator or receiver that we are supposed to speak to, that okay, this person is that, this person is this, then this preconceived understanding of the other person will lead towards a faulty communication as well. And there are mental capacities of every person. Every person has a different mental capacity, different IQ, different intelligence quotient, and different emotional quotient. So they also pose problems in communicating. We have to take care of them as well. Cultural barriers. Semantic problems. Distortion in communication comes from semantics, the use of words or expressions which have a different meaning for sender or receiver. Different cultures have different words, right? So we must understand the cultural domains of the words semantically, that they might be meaning different. Like I can give you an example that we use this word derogatively, buck, right? वो क्या बक रहा है, like, right? This word means negative. Whereas in Turkish language, bak means look, dekho, bak, dekho, right? So the sounds are the same. The word might be having the same sounds, bak, bak, but the meanings are different. So see, in different cultures, different sounds may be interpreted in with different meanings. So we have to know this as well. If we are meeting with some, say, if I meet with some Turkish person and he says the word bak, I will be thinking, being an Urdu speaker, I'll think that he's asking me to bak, bakna, right? And I might be angry. So this will be not only causing animosity or a harsh feeling in my heart, but also be barrier to our communication. So created when communicators use technical jargon, and another thing that happens in that causes communication barrier is the jargon use, that the technical words that we, as in the previous lecture we talked um, about the language of a medical expert, that what that the sort of language that a medical expert uses with the common persons may be leading towards misconception, may be leading towards confusion, may be leading towards a faulty communication. So therefore we have to avoid such words while we are into speaking with others, those words which might be semantically having differences lodged in different cultures, and we also should avoid the words they are which are technically jargons and difficult to understand for common people. Cultural barriers, language, different languages, dialects, individuals, linguistic ability, use of difficult words, inappropriate words, pronunciation. These are the factors that attribute to language, the quality of language. You see, um, there are cities in which the people, like if we talk about Faisalabad, in Faisalabad everybody speaks in a very humorous manner, right? That is, nobody will you will find nobody who will not be having any humorous quip in response to your statement or in response to your sentence. If you say some, if you're talking to some to person coming from Faisalabad and say that oh, I have got, I have less time, I have to move. He'll say, are you a prime minister? So this might, well, I mean, it may sound to be an affront for many of the people, but those who will be understanding, the people of Faisalabad, they will be understanding that, okay, he's implying a joke. He means not something wrong. He actually wants to have a good time on the expense of the speaker. So there are different norms and values in different areas. There are different beliefs. There are social practice and traditions that belong to a certain area, and the people belonging to that certain area are following those norms and traditions, those practices, those beliefs, those values, those language systems. So uh, a person coming from Pindi to Faisalabad might not be finding it, comfortable to have the quips or to have the humorous remarks coming from a Faisalabadi person. So you see that how cultural differences also become the barriers for communication. Physiological barriers, individuals' personal discomfort, ill health, poor eyesight, hearing difficulties also cause, the also become the barriers of communication. Speech and voice defect, feeling of inferiority, diseases, physical appearance, lack of skill, all these factors also. These are the physiological factors. They belong to the physique of a person, a particular person, but also serve as the barriers to communication. System design, organizational structure. In organizations, the organization might be having not an not having any clear system of communication, insufficient or inappropriate information systems, information overloaded, or lack of clarity in roles and responsibilities, a lack of supervision or training that is within an organization. Different people, if not given clear codes of conduct, then might be confusing one another. Say, uh, in some institution, there is no clear authority, that there are 4 to 5 heads, and there are, say, 50 to 60 subordinates, but all those heads are equal, or there is no chain of command between those heads. Then definitely the communication system will be a failure within that organization, because people will be looking towards different people regarding their orders, and orders issued by different people will be leading towards a chaos. So you see, that system design is equally important for efficient, effective communication. And if a system is faulty, that there is no chain of command, there is no hierarchy, then things are liable to be confused very easily. The distortion of message is any kind of loss, deformation, mispresentation, or alteration taken place in original message while sending it to the audience. So types of distortions are systematic distortions that are purposely changed, fog distortions, information is lost, mirage distortion, that is extra unwanted information. So three types of distortions may occur in any message, which will be leading towards ineffective communication. A systematic distortion is one that has been, lodged purposely. Okay, that if somebody is communicating purposefully in a wrong manner. And fog is that between, if if I say something and then you hear it and then you say it to somebody else, and then that somebody else is going to say that same information to somebody else. You see, in within this process of communication, after 4 to 5 stages, persons involved, the message will be lost, because nobody will be speaking the exact words. My exact words are liable to be changed with my listener. My listener, when he's going to express the same idea, will be choosing his own words, and he will be losing some part of the idea as well. And further, so on and so forth, on every level, a part of message will be lost. So this calls this is called the fog distortion. And a mirage distortion is that I have said something to my listener. My listener has added something else with that message, and the other person to whom he has said it is going to add another point of his own within that message. So by the time that message receives, after 4 to 5 stages to to some person, it will be a swollen message. It will be a double, tripled message, and might be having extra and unwanted information in it. So these are the different types of distortions that may occur in any kind of message. Status and power differences. As we know that we have already talked about that people belonging to different status and different power structure are ill at ease. Say, well, standing in front of Prime Minister, a Home Secretary will not be in a position to speak freely, because there is the hierarchy involved, the power structure is involved, the status of that other person is involved. So you see that we oftenly use this word that it is easy to sit on the other side of the chair and interview, whereas it is difficult to sit on the other side of the chair and be interviewed. These are the two different situations referring to two different powers and status structures, and hence causing imbalance or is asymmetry in negotiating power leads to higher power party to perform significantly better than the lower power party. A person sitting at the other side of the desk with power in his hands is more clear in his thoughts and is jeopardizing at the same time the other person sitting in front of him somehow or the other not to come clearly, right? Physical barriers, channel availability of channel to receiver, common channel, choice of channel, handling of channel by communicator, reach depending, you know here the one of the physical barriers for effective communication is the medium itself. The medium, if the messages, it may be uh, inherent with the channel. It may be due to the atmosphere or environment or climate, or it may be level of comfort that might be causing that. See, and distractions occur where people are constantly coming in and leaving. For there might be distractions while there is a communication system going on. People coming and leaving the room might be causing noise, and that noise may not be making things very audible, right? So distractions, various kinds of distractions that occur, right? Noises, photographers photographing, announcements, instructions, tea times, and latecomers, all these things in a meeting. While in a situation of a meeting, much of the information may be lost due to the inaudibility, because of the noise and the people around. So in lecture hall, sitting arrangement or audiovisual aids may be causing any problem. So different situations have different problems. Receiver, the ultimate absenteeism. If the receiver is not absent, then how can the message reach him? Strayers, there are people, you know, who talk about different things instead of talking about straight about the point. Gabbers, they are the people who like to talk first and try to dominate in the discussion, always talking, always talking. So the message is lost. And the silent people, they're just as well informed as many other members of the group, but they rarely contribute verbally. So these are the kinds of receivers who also affect on the communication process and hence cause the barriers to the communication. So relating to receiver problems of homogeneity, the more homogeneous the audience is, the greater are the chances for successful communication. That is, the listeners are, if they are on the same level, they can understand. And problem of cooperation and involvement, if the listeners are cooperating and involved completely into the talk, then they can understand it. And the negative attitude of the audience towards the communicator, if the person who is listening is not ready to accept whatsoever is coming from the mouth of the speaker, then of course the communication is faulty. It is not going to have any effect. So receivers are also, you know, to be blamed if they have a set pattern stereotype about the speaker. Problems in communication relating to communicator, that if there is an ineffective environment, you see that there are less facilities around, the air of friendliness is not there, and the rapport between the speaker and the audience is not right, then there is a problem. And unorganized efforts to communicate, if the person is not organized well, his message is distorted, his message is you know is not organized well. And poor standard of correctness, if the level of the message is not correct, the standard of the correctness is compromised, then it will be a barrier. Inaccurate symbols, if you use wrong symbols, inaccurate symbols within your speech, then once again in your slides or in your messages that you give, the problems will also occur. And the message, if it is transmitted and is handled through you know uh, uh, the medium is not correct, then it will be lost. And we need to have parallel channels, that if I have sent a video to some a video message, then I can also send an SMS at the same time on the phone as well in WhatsApp group. So you see, you need to have parallel channels of sending the same message. It will be helpful. And physical distraction, so uh, uh, these must be avoided. These are the things that must be avoided. Points to remember. I'm hurriedly finishing this now, and we are well, we are headlong towards, say, the second hour of our talk by now. Points to remember: communication is a two-way process. Effective communication is equal to bridging the gap between encoded and decoded message, establishing common understanding. Right? Responsibility of effective communication mainly lies with the communicator. More oftenly, feedback is an important return message. Ensure getting and using it effectively for better performance. Know the roadblocks, that is, there might be some blocks. This will help you to handle the communication process in an effective way. And today's lecture was about those roadblocks, that how we can avoid those barriers and how we can be more effective in our expression, in our communication. So use heart and mind and soul for an effective result. You should be completely immersed within the message that you are to send. Communication is a skill. Learn and practice. And this is the most important thing, that communication is a skill. It is the more you do it, the better you are, right? So you invest your time in communication and you will become good communicators. To become an effective communicator, make effective use of heart and body, mind and soul. That is all of you. That is the whole of you. That is the full of you. If you are completely into your talk, that talk is going to be meaningful, that is going to be effective, that is going to be lasting, right? So with this, my dear students, I wish you I'm thankful to you for bearing with me for that long today, and I wish you a happy understanding of the lecture. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.